Welcome to the Empowered Flow podcast. I'm Trish Alexandra, holistic clinical nutritionist, women's health and menstrual cycle educator, and mama. Join me and experts in nutrition, fitness, mindset, and holistic healing as we explore conversations to open your mind to a different way of thinking on all things women's health, hormones, periods, cyclical living, and fertility. Whether you're seeking knowledge, inspiration, or a supportive community, you've found your tribe. Let's dive in. Mel, so lovely to have you here. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me, and congrats on the podcast. It's so exciting.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. Mel, I'll let you introduce yourself, but just briefly, Mel is from The Seed Cycle, and we have so much in common, and we share so much passion around women's health and hormones and using food as medicine and using a no Band-Aid approach to health. And that's what I really, really love about what you do. So Mel, please give me a little intro. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Mel or Melissa Kovacevic, and I am the founder of The Seed Cycle. My background's in functional nutrition, and I'm also an EFT tapping practitioner. And I actually started studying nutrition as a hobby. And if I'm really honest, I was trying to heal my relationship with food, not knowing it at the time. I was really just trying to work out how to lose weight. And all the diets didn't work. And so I thought, well, if I study it, maybe I'll learn how to lose weight. Because at the time, and most of my teens and most of my 20s, my life revolved around trying to lose weight. And luckily, what I learned was so much more than just how to lose weight. I really did fall in love with food and the belief that food is medicine, and functional nutrition just really resonated with me, and that belief that our bodies have an innate intelligence, and given the right tools and resources, they can heal and they can thrive. And one of the first subjects I studied with functional nutrition was culture and traditions, and its place and its role when it comes to our food choices and nutrition. And it just resonated with me because I could never do the just food as fuel. I come from a Croatian background. We eat to celebrate. We pass down our traditions through food. And so just having that brought into a conversation around nutrition, it took the pressure off. I was like, whew, okay, and started to change my perspective. And then the seed cycle just kind of threw a curveball. Was definitely not something I ever thought that I would have my own health food product. And it really came about because I was trying to help my clients stay consistent with their seed cycling routines.
Oh, beautiful. I love that so much. And we will dive into, what seed cycling is, because I'm sure there's people going, what are they talking about right now? But I love that story about and your journey through health, and about realizing that health was so much more than dieting, and it was really about connecting to the food and celebrating food, because food is so much more than just nutrients. Of course, that's important, but it's so much more than that. We eat for so many different reasons. I have a really similar background in that I started studying nutrition because of PCOS, but I have a half Italian background, and so the same. Like, we celebrate with food, and when you can't enjoy those food experiences, it can really have an impact on your life. But I also really believe that our relationship with food impacts our hormone health. Our body hears everything that our thoughts and our mind, is going through and thinking. And I just think that your story there is just so beautiful, and how the seed cycle came about.
Oh, thank you. It's I love how you said that. That link, because I didn't realize, also I work so hard to heal my relationship with my body and body confidence, and hormone health, and understanding our menstrual cycles is one of the keys to body confidence. No one talks about that.
Yes. Body literacy is so important, and we're just not taught as women.
No.
For sure. And tell me a little bit about what EFT tapping is as well.
Oh, yes, it's very cool. It's like my first love, my first baby. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And it's basically a combination of ancient Chinese acupressure and modern psychology. And you're using your fingers to tap on different acupressure points on your face and your body. And that sends a calming signal to your amygdala, which is a stress center of the brain. There is so much science and research behind EFT now. It's considered an evidence-based practice. It's used by some of the world's leading trauma experts, and they've now been able to prove that it reduces cortisol by 43% when you.
Wow.
So it's just wild. And tapping was something that really helped me in so many different ways. And the power of tapping is it's something you can do yourself in the moment when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling anxious, when you may have just had a conversation that's left you really irritated. You can do a couple of minutes of your own tapping and totally change your state. I became a clinical EFT practitioner and used that to help women heal their relationship with food. Because, you know, as you would know, Trish, you can give someone a great meal plan or, you know, like myself, I knew everything about nutrition. I knew every diet inside out. But I needed to look at the beliefs I had around myself, around my body, around food, in order to heal that. So yeah, I really encourage people to look into EFT. The tapping solution has an app where they guide you through tapping, like they're like 9 or 10 minute tapping meditations, which is really cool. So you can start there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, let's dive into seed cycling, because I'm sure, people are thinking, what is seed cycling if they haven't heard of it before? Let's just start out. What is seed cycling?
So seed cycling is a technique that we use to support our hormones, and it's actually a really simple practice that involves consuming 4 key seeds at different times in your menstrual cycle. And the nutrients in the seeds help your body with the production and elimination of estrogen and progesterone. It's something that, I don't know, I think it's been around for a really long time, but maybe it had been placed in the woo-woo world. And I think that's because, you know, and we'll talk about this, if your cycle isn't regular, then we start talking about moon phases and how you use the moon phases to seed cycle. And I think some people just go, oh, that's all a bit weird for me. But like, I'm like, no, wait, stop, please listen. Give me a minute to explain it and the benefits. And now we're seeing it used obviously more and more, and the benefits and the science as well in terms of the individual seeds and their effects on our hormones, which is really cool.
Yeah, I'm all about blending the science and the woo-woo, let's be honest.
Oh, isn't it the best?
I think I think about this with food as well. Like, there's an art and a science to it. We use science, we use that evidence-based science that we have to say, yes, okay, we know that the science shows this, that this nutrient supports, you know, hormone production, and, you know, these nutrients support estrogen metabolism and detoxification, and we use the science for that. But then there's part of it where we have to, like, I call it like the art of eating, where we have to really tap into our own intuition and our own body signals and kind of go, okay, what is working for me? What feels right? What feels really good for me? So I'm all about blending both together.
I love
I
that.
think with seed cycling, like, there is some evidence behind it, and particularly around the individual seeds. But I know that there is even a study around seed cycling being used with PCOS women.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about the individual seeds, or the science and the evidence behind seed cycling, and how those seeds can help with hormonal balance and symptoms?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 4 key seeds, I always say they're probably seeds you already have in your pantry, so you can start seed cycling today. Are flaxseed and pumpkin seed, and that's what we call our phase 1 seeds, and sesame and sunflower, and that's what we call our phase 2 seeds. And when we're looking at the nutrients in phase 1, some of those superstars are your omega-3s, your lignans, which are a form of phytoestrogens. And the way I like to explain phytoestrogens are So we have estrogen receptor cells all over our bodies, and the phytoestrogen is like a plug, and it plugs into that receptor cell and it tells that cell what to do, whether to create more estrogen or to block that estrogen production. So that's really cool that seed, or that lignin, that phytoestrogen, is giving that signal. Zinc, magnesium, some iron as well in the pumpkin seeds. And also I love the fact that it's all coming from nature. And I'm not against supplements. I take my supplements myself, but our bodies recognize and respond to the nutrients in the seeds so well. It's like, I know this. And so that's phase 1. And then phase 2 seeds are your sunflower and your sesame. And I think one of the superstars is definitely vitamin E. And I really, so what, when I was doing seed cycling with my clients, I'd always say to them, look, it's not a quick fix. It's something that you got to do consistently. You got to do for, a couple months, let's like 3 to 6 months, have that in your head. And then you're going to want to continue it anyway, because you're going to feel so good, but that's a goal. And, but then when we launched the seed cycle and I started getting feedback on a larger scale, what women were telling me was within that first month, they noticed their skin feels brighter, clearer, less breakouts, and that vitamin E content. And I think within that that therapeutic dose, it's like over 40% or 47% of your daily dose of vitamin E in those seeds. There are so many nutrients in it, and I love that it's, like you said in the beginning, just using food as medicine. It's so simple. All we do is grind up the seeds, and that's just so your body can access the nutrients better. That a lot of people ask me, what if I'm just having them without grinding them, and we always suggest that you grind them, so your body, and especially flaxseed and sesame seed, like if you're having them and they haven't been ground, they're just going to go straight through you. And certified organics, really important as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I love it. I love that they're organic, because it's not always that easy to get organic seeds. And it just means, reducing more of that environmental toxin load that we are all exposed to. And if we can reduce it in some way, then that's so beneficial. You mentioned therapeutic dose. And I think this is really important, because something that I do with my clients is, we put together nutrition and treatment plans, and I use therapeutic doses of nutrients, and I always try and go food first. And that's why I love seed cycling. And so what I love about seed cycling is that it's very, you could say to someone, you really need to increase your omega-3s or your essential fatty acids or this nutrient. So add some seeds into your diet. But just saying that means that quite often they're going to forget. They'll add a little bit here and there. And yes, that's beneficial, but they're not getting that therapeutic dose. And so we know from the science, even for example, flax seeds, like you talked about, those phytoestrogens, there's numerous studies showing that that certain dose of flax seeds will have that beneficial effect, that therapeutic dose. So I think that's really great about with the seed cycling and the seed cycle that you do, is that it's just such an easy way to get that therapeutic dose without having to think about it. Like, I know for me, I love that. Like, I know I need my seeds, but having it in those canisters means here's my scoop. I've added it into my smoothie, my yogurt bowl. I put some on a salad today. Like, it was beautiful, have a little bit of texture and crunch through like the salad and the salad dressing. And it just makes it so much easier to remember.
Yeah, and that's really where the business came about. I was just trying to help my clients stay consistent. I had a couple of clients who would be like, Mel, what seeds are they again? And I know you said you had to grind them up, but it's all too hard and I keep forgetting. And where do I take them? And so I was like, well, what if I create the blends for you, which I was doing myself in little jars? Will that be easier? And they're like, yeah, that would be awesome. And it does. It means it's there. You don't have to worry about, that day grinding it up but then, I did have other clients who loved that ritual of every fortnight they would put their mix together. So, that's a beautiful ritual to have as well.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And I think as well, it's, I always say to my clients, it's never just the one thing that we do. It's never one supplement, one food or anything like that. But what I find is that having these beautiful routines and rituals is like a stepping stone to doing the next thing and the next thing. And then the next minute, you've made all these incredible, beautiful changes to your nutrition, and your health is just thriving and your hormones are just thriving. And so I find that with the seed cycle is it's that beautiful ritual. It's that time of like, oh, I'm providing myself with this, self-care and this, I'm nourishing my body in this really nice way. And that can just be a catalyst for more change.
Oh, yeah. And that's what our customers tell us. I have one customer who said, Mel, I'm just eating so much healthier because I used to just have Vegemite and toast in the morning, but I don't want to put the seeds on that because I just don't feel like that's doing them justice. So now I'm making myself this beautiful porridge bowl. And so it's that flow-on effect. And how nice does it feel when you've done something consistently, and then you kind of do a little pat on the back, like, yeah, I was really consistent with my seeds. And then that pays off in so many other ways when you're in that premenstrual phase, when you're having a period, like, which is just so nice. But then the opposite happens when you haven't been consistent or things are a bit stressful, then you can really, well, I do, particularly like premenstrual, then I can really feel it. Things feel a bit harder and I'm like, well, I know why that's happening.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why like body literacy is so important, and understanding our menstrual cycle, because knowing what's kind of coming up in your cycle, knowing like, oh, in my luteal phase, that week before my period, I might feel a little bit more inward. I might feel a little bit more slow and fatigued and not wanting to do, as much as I normally do. I might feel a little bit more hungry or a little bit more moody, but just like knowing what's kind of coming up and what's normal and what's not can be really, really helpful. Yeah, and I do. Yeah, I just think body literacy is everything.
Yeah, it's helped me so much, just even in business. Like, I know that if I'm doing a podcast and I'm ovulating, I'm going to be shiny, bright. It's going to be easy. If I'm doing a podcast in my luteal phase, I'm going to have a bit more anxiety. I'm going to not feel as articulate. It's going to be a little bit harder. But now knowing that, it just takes the pressure off, because I don't make it about me. Like, I'm crap at this, or, it can apply to everything. Exercise. It's like, if you don't get to the gym as often and you're in your luteal phase, then it's not, before I'd be like, oh, well, I'm just lazy and I'm unfit and I'm not doing enough. Whereas knowing, well, this is actually what phase I'm at, and this is what my body needs.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just, I wish we were taught this stuff like earlier, because it's just, it does make life, I feel like I'm so much kinder to myself and makes things easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we want to talk about seed cycling and how it can be used for reducing like the severity of menstrual cycle irregularities, whether that be heavier, more painful periods, irregular cycles? I use it with my PCOS clients, whether you've got PMS, skin breakouts. Like, let's talk about how to use it for menstrual cycle irregularities.
Yeah, I'd love to start by talking about what causes our hormones to go out of balance, because again, like, not a lot of us know like what are the reasons and what are the long-term and short-term consequences of our hormones not being in balance. So the big one that comes to mind, which everyone usually guesses when I ask the question, is like stress. That can cause our hormones to go out of balance, endocrine disrupting chemicals, and this is a big one. So we're talking about plastics, we're talking about pesticides and herbicides, and you mentioned like the certified organic seeds. There was no way I wasn't going to use certified organic seeds. Like, I don't want to be saying here, seed cycle, but the seeds may have pesticides and herbicides on them which disrupt your hormones. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Cleaning products, our makeup, anything that we put on our skin, and this can be overwhelming, and it can just feel like, oh, I just want to bury my head in the sand, or it's all too hard. But it's sometimes, or most of the time, it's those small changes that you make that don't really make much of a difference. I used up my moisturizer that I bought from Woolies, didn't really like it anyway. Now I've looked at the ingredients and I don't recognize any of that. I'm going to switch to something cleaner. And those little changes, or, you know, I used up my my cleaning products, I'm going to switch to I'm going to try making my own, or I'm going to switch to something that, again, that's a higher quality. And all those little changes over time make a big difference to our hormones. They really do. And so that's a big one. And I know it's a rabbit hole, and I know people can get overwhelmed by it, but we can't bury our heads in the sand. Our hormones are sensitive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's too big of a topic. It's too big of a it's known. So just to kind of further deep dive into that, like endocrine disrupting chemicals, EDCs, they're known to block, mimic, interfere with, alter our hormones, and that can have widespread effects across our entire body. And when we think about hormones, most people think about our sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, but our hormones there's so many other hormones. We've got insulin, you know, we've got our hunger hormones, we've got cortisol, our stress hormone, and they all have such huge effects on symptoms, on the way our body functions, on our metabolic health, on our fertility. And I don't mean to say all this to to scare or overwhelm people. It's just that knowledge is power. And like you said, it's just about making those little changes one by one, step by step, that you can go, I finished this product, I'm going to swap it over for something else. Deodorant's a big one as well.
Yes, it really is.
Anyway, I've interrupted you there. So
no, I'm glad you did, because I feel it's really important to have this conversation. And, you know, sometimes in the past, I wouldn't bring it up so much because I know people can get overwhelmed, and especially makeup, like defensive. Well, I really like this makeup and I get it. But, you know, just swapping the things that you're not really fussed about anyway. So it's going to lower that toxic load. So then, if you do have this foundation that you love, and you might go, okay, well, it might not be, you know, the best one I can buy, but my body can take it because I've made all these other adjustments, so it's not overburdened with these toxins. Some of the other things that can disrupt our hormones, our poor diet, which we know, lack of sleep, the pill and other medications, artificial light exposure, unfortunately, chronic inflammation, lack of sunlight and vitamin D. And so, when you look at that list, it's kind of like our core hormones are just being bombarded, you know, with this modern world that we live in. So I think that if we can do things like seed cycling to mitigate some of that, plus then make those better decisions where we can, it really does make a big difference. And I've been thinking a lot about longevity and I've been researching. It's big. And I think that as women, one of the, you know, I was talking to a friend about it, and I think she was a bit like, this is very deep, Mel. You know, we're only 35, but I was like, well, I want to live a really long time. And I'm thinking, I want my family to live a really long time. I want everyone to live a long time and live a really healthy life. And, you know, one of the ways that we can do that is to support our hormones.
Yes.
And you mentioned, you know, the consequences of having that hormone imbalance long term are pretty scary diseases. And then short term, I think of things that as women we've just put up with, like PMS, like painful periods, like hormonal migraines, which I had most of my life. You know, it's just get on with it. You know, it's just part of being a woman, but it's not. There's those PMS signs that there's an imbalance happening. And again, starting to listen, like you were saying before, that body literacy, starting to listen to those signs, and then doing what you can to support your hormones. And then when your hormones are feeling balanced, life is just easier.
It sure is.
Isn't it? I just don't know how else to explain it.
It can be really debilitating to have these symptoms of hormone imbalance. I always say a couple of things. I say, just because something is common doesn't make it normal. We are, like you said, we are so used to hearing about period pain, like significant period pain, yes, of course, you know, you might get a little bit of cramping and feel a little bit more bloated and a little bit uncomfortable leading up to your period or when it starts. But if it's significant pain that's stopping you from doing your day-to-day things, stopping you from going to work, or you're needing like pain medication, then it's significant, and there could be something underlying that you could you could do something about and support, and knowledge is power. So yeah, just because something's common doesn't make it normal is a big one. And the other one is that something for me was that when I had all of these symptoms of PCOS, I had this feeling of like my body's broken. Like I have PCOS and like I was trying so hard, to fix everything and pushing my body to its absolute limits, trying to do all of these different things because I felt like, oh, my body's broken. But instead, it was really about tuning in and listening to my body and going, okay, what are these signals my body's sending me? My body's telling me something. It's telling me it needs something. Maybe it's needing more nutrient support. It's needing more stress support. It's needing, whatever it may be. But I think if we can flip that mindset and go, what's your body actually telling you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're quick to just make it mean something about us, like, oh, we're, like you said, I'm broken, but really when you look at it as what it is, and unfortunately if you don't listen to the signals, it starts to scream louder and in different ways, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's bring it back to using seed cycling to reduce those symptoms. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what we're doing with the seeds is we're having the phase 1 and phase 2 at different phases of your menstrual cycle. And this is where it's really cool, because you're having those specific nutrients at the time that your body needs it. So for phase 1, we're having it from day 1 of your period to ovulation. And so those seeds are going to really support your estrogen and the production and elimination of estrogen in that first phase, which then sets you up for your second phase, which is your luteal phase. So from ovulation back to day 1 of your period. And that's when you're having phase 2. So your sesame and your sunflower seeds. And that's really supporting the production and of progesterone. And progesterone is a really important hormone for women. It's what makes us feel calm,
Yes.
which is really nice. And there are so many other benefits to us producing progesterone. It helps with our sleep. And often when we don't have enough progesterone, when our body's not producing enough, that's where you can have those mood swings, the hormonal migraines, and so on. So that's how we're seed cycling. A lot of women will say to me, but Mel, I don't have a cycle, or I'm on the pill, I'm trying to get off, or maybe postmenopausal, or PCOS, their cycle might be irregular. And this is where, when we were speaking before about the moon phases. And so what's really interesting about the moon, well, firstly, women have used the moon to support fertility for a really long time, but it mimics a menstrual cycle. So the moon's at 29.5 days. An average menstrual cycle is 28 days, say. So what we're doing is we're using the moon as a link, as a tether. And so you're having phase 1 from a new moon, and then you're having phase 2 from a full moon. And so what I'll say is track your cycle and just notice how notice it, track it. And then often after a couple months, what happens is you'll notice that your cycle becomes more regular, and then you can switch to seed cycling with your own menstrual cycle. And this is particularly in menopause or post-menopause, having that, still living in that cyclical way, which is how women are designed to live. We'll talk about like men, and their hormones are based around a circadian rhythm with that 24-hour cycle, whereas ours is an infradian rhythm, which is a 28-day cycle. And so that's where we feel different in different days or different phases, and our hormones are doing different things in different phases, whereas men's hormones, every day they do the same thing. And so that understanding is really important. And then you also then where you need to using the moon to help that cyclical rhythm is just
Yeah.
so powerful.
Yeah, beautiful. And when you mentioned as well, like our infradian rhythm, that 28-day or that menstrual cycle,
Yes.
something that a lot of people aren't aware of is our infradian rhythm doesn't just impact our hormones or our menstrual cycle, but at the same time, there's changes and impacts that are happening in so many systems in the body, in our metabolic system, so our metabolism, which impacts energy, weight, so many other things. Our immune system, our brain health, our brain function actually changes throughout the cycle with hormones. And then, of course, like our reproductive system and our fertility. So, yeah, it's not just about our hormones, but our entire body's functioning works on this infradian rhythm.
Yeah, isn't that wild? And no
Yeah.
wonder that, some days you feel like you can do so much, and then others it's just all a bit harder.
Yeah. It's
Everything
like that.
differently.
It's like that thing that said, like, around ovulation, where women suddenly get this beautiful, like, boost of confidence, and they're like, like, yes, I can take on the world. And then it's like in your luteal phase, you just want to, like, I'm just gonna, like, hide under a blanket and just just let
Yeah.
me be for a couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Do
feel
you know
that.
the other thing that's the other thing that's really interesting, I know you mentioned about using the moon phases and that feeling a little bit woo-woo for people. I'm going to share something not about the moon phases, but something just to link in that how cyclical women's bodies work. I had a client, and she's got PCOS, had a lot of menstrual cycle irregularities, and she moved in with a friend of hers who has a perfectly 28-day cycle, and within a couple of months her menstrual cycle changed and she started getting a regular cycle at the same time as her friend. There is a number of other stories that I've heard and worked with clients who are athletes and work in sporting teams with other women. And quite often, like, the majority of the team will end up, their cycles change and they will end up on the same menstrual cycle phase. So they'll all be in the same phase at the same time because they spend so much time together. And there's, my understanding is there is evidence of, like, anecdotal evidence of that happening throughout history of women
Yes.
in communities and things like that, where their cycles do come into sync with one another. And I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, and that's where the whole, like, when you're ovulating on a full moon and menstruating on a new moon, that comes from historically women would gather on a new moon and menstruate together. It's
Yeah.
fascinating, and it's something I definitely want to learn more about.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So tell me, when do you recommend women using the moon phases for seed cycling? I know you mentioned about if your cycles are regular. So, for example, someone like me, I have PCOS. My cycle's just slightly longer than 28 days. I usually sit around the 32 days. But for me, I find your seed cycle products perfect because you've got that little bit extra in the bottom of the tubs, which means that I can make a full cycle and just continue on following my cycle. But for some other women whose cycles might be longer than that or very irregular, that's when you would recommend just using the moon phases.
Yeah, and with that, I would always recommend also working with a practitioner, someone like you. And like you
Yeah.
said before, it's not, and that this is functional nutrition. There's no one quick fix. And what I've noticed about seed cycling, though, it seems to be that missing puzzle piece. They're doing all the other beautiful things, and we add seed cycling in, and all of a sudden everything comes together. But yeah, if your cycle is irregular, number one, find someone one-on-one that can support you. But then, yeah, also, and like with seed cycling, we always say you can use it in combination. It's not like I'm going to seed cycle and I'm not going to do anything else.
Yes.
Like I had someone recently say, oh, I'm taking these herbs and naturopathic gummy, but I think I'm going to stop them and just start seed cycling to see which one's going to work. And it's like, no. I know. I can get the logic behind that.
Yeah.
But the combination is going to be so powerful. And it could be even there might be some medications that your doctor's prescribed, or you may be working with a specialist. And so, the combination of that and seed cycling, can be really powerful. So it's not a one fix, and it doesn't have to be, this is it, and this is the only thing I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And look, there's no, one thing, one food, one supplement that's going to fix it all. It really is about that combination and supporting your body in a really holistic way to get to those like underlying root causes of what's going on with symptoms.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
Can we talk about using seed cycling for perhaps fertility and conception, and how that would look, and what you recommend there?
Yeah. I think seed cycling is such a beautiful way to support your fertility. Again, like, fertility is complex. And you have to be working, it's not even, sometimes it's not even one person. You may need a team around you to be supporting you. Often, I have a team, a big team. Practitioners and different people that support me, and I think that that's really beautiful. But seed cycling is something that you can add in, and again, depending on where you're at. So if your cycle is regular around that, anywhere from probably like 26 to 32, would you say, days? Then you can use your own cycle, and you would start using phase 1 from day 1 of your period, and then switch if you know when you're ovulating, which I think is really important, and something, again, like, I didn't know when I was ovulating. I thought like a menstrual cycle was just like when you bleed. So that understanding of your whole menstrual cycle, knowing when you're ovulating, and then switching to phase 2 then, is a beautiful way to support your fertility. If your cycle is irregular, then you would use the moon phases, and track your cycle. And even if your cycle is looking like it's regulating, give it another month or 2 of moon cycling, and then switch over to seed cycling with your own menstrual cycle. We just hear the most amazing stories. It's like, at least once a month I'll get a beautiful message with a picture on Instagram with like a pregnancy test, or it's just, I stop, and I can't, like, my heart stops when I get these messages saying, I think seed cycling really helped, I'm pregnant. This happened really early on with a client that I had when I first started introducing seed cycling. She got off the pill within was seed cycling with a couple of months. Her cycle regulated, and then she fell pregnant, and she was like, Mel, I think it was the seeds. And at that point I was like,
love that.
I don't know, but like, cool, like, how amazing is that? So it's just such a beautiful way to support your fertility. It does encourage that and support ovulation, which we know is really important to conceive. It also can improve the quality of your cervical mucus, which again is another important factor. And then as well, obviously, all those nutrients are supporting those hormones. Yes.
Yeah. And even the vitamin E in some of the seeds is really beautiful for supporting egg quality and the maturation of eggs and follicles. So that's a really important one as well. There's a couple of things, I always say with fertility is, one, like you said, you need to know when you're ovulating and where your fertile window is. I know that it sounds really simple, but most women don't know. We aren't taught about ovulation. Most of us rely on apps to tell us when we're ovulating, and it'll say, oh, hey, here's day 14, you're ovulating. But for a lot of women, they may not ovulate on day 14, and then they're missing that actual fertile window. And then number 2 is that nutrition can be so incredibly powerful at supporting our fertility. And fertility isn't just about making babies. Like, an optimally fertile body is an optimally healthy body. But of course, like, for those that are family planning, then nutrition is such a great way of supporting egg quality, sperm quality, supporting ovulation, supporting that hormonal balance, to help us, fall pregnant. So I love that.
So powerful. Me too.
Oh goodness, there's so much more. Let's even talk about then seed cycling. What about perimenopause, postmenopause? So that is such a big hormonal shift and change. So the perimenopause, perimenopause phase can last for up to 10 years. And it's said that perimenopause is as significant of a hormone change as puberty is. It's huge shifts and changes that happen with estrogen and progesterone, and that causes all of the symptoms of perimenopause and then menopause. So for those that don't know, perimenopause is the phase leading up to your very last period, and then menopause is defined as after your last period. So 12 months after your last period, if you haven't had a period, then that's menopause. But how can we use seed cycling during those phases, perimenopause and menopause?
Yeah, seed cycling is really powerful at extending your menstruating years. And I've seen this firsthand with a lot of customers who have gone a couple months without having a period. They're like, oh, I think I'm in menopause, having a lot of those symptoms, started seed cycling with the moon phases. And one customer had another 7 months of regular periods. Which is really good. And some women are like, no, I just want it done with. But the longer you can menstruate, the better it is for your health. So that was, and she was so happy. And so she continued to seed cycle. And then again, then she hadn't had a period, and we just continued with the moon cycles. And what she found, and what a lot of customers are telling us, is that they're helping with those menopause symptoms, the hot flushes, etc. And particularly, like you're saying, with perimenopause, the hormones are all over the place. A lot of the time, that excess estrogen is causing a lot of those symptoms. And so what the seeds are doing is helping your body with the production and elimination. So helping your body eliminate any of that excess estrogen, which is then having that flow-on effect. And then menopause, post-menopause, continuing that cyclical rhythm. I was speaking to a customer yesterday, and she was saying, it helps me feel youthful. And she's like, and I really enjoy just knowing, where the moon's at, and I'm really embracing it. And then obviously all those other benefits of like the seeds, the fibers and the seeds, all the other nutrients we've spoken about. It's a really beautiful practice to continue.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned as well, just with wanting to sort of extend those periods during perimenopause as long as we can. And that's really, for those that don't know, that's really because estrogen and progesterone are really protective for our health. And we want to sort of support those hormones and support the balance of those hormones as much as we can and for as long as we can. And then post menopause, when those hormone levels have dropped, the seeds, particularly, flaxseed, the phytoestrogens in those seeds are actually supporting, because your own estrogen has dropped significantly. Those phytoestrogens can be really beneficial in reducing some of those symptoms like hot flushes that are caused by that low estrogen and that drop of estrogen. So I love that, really can support women throughout their reproductive years and beyond as well for optimal health.
Yeah. And the feedback is like, it's just such a simple thing that I can do for myself. And again, some of those flow-on effects. And this is where, when I came across it, I was just like, wow, like, why haven't I heard of this? And like, it's just ticking so many boxes, that like the food is medicine, the science behind the seeds, obviously supporting our hormones, but also that intuitive side of it, of like understanding where we're at in the menstrual cycle, with the moon phases. There was just so many benefits beyond the nutrients. And I remember when we were about to start the business, and my husband, we realized how much money we had to invest, and he was like, looked at me like point blank, was like, does it really work? Like, he was like, I could see he was just like panicked for a second. And I was like, if nothing else, like, forget about the hormones, forget about the cycling, like most of us aren't having these seeds every day, and the nutrients are so beneficial that if you're having it, if people are having it, they're going to feel better, and it's going to be beneficial for their health. And he was kind of like, okay, good, just checking.
We can continue.
Okay, I'll transfer that money now.
Look, even for me as a nutritionist who knows how to support my health and hormones, I love your products. I love the Seed Cycle beautiful canisters because it just makes it so much easier, and it is that little ritual for me. But you also have, so you've got the beautiful subscription where you've got the phase 1 and phase 2 canisters of the ground seeds, but you've also got some baking mixes.
Yes. And so this was because I was trying to help my sister-in-law seed cycle, and she was being a bit fussy for me. And she was like, well, I don't like smoothies and I don't really eat salads. And so because I was trying to work out how to help her incorporate the seeds. And
yep.
And I was like, well, what if I make like a brownie for you, and I'll work out the doses, because obviously I need you to have the therapeutic dose. So I'll work it out, and you can have 1 piece each day, and then that's going to be your dose, and that can be a healthy snack as well. Will you have it then? And she's like, yeah. So for months I was making these brownies and biscuits, brownies for phase 1, biscuits for phase 2. We were living together at the time, so it was all a bit easy to like be on top of it with her.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's where the brownies came from, and then I would really enjoy them. But like even for her, like she'd just gotten off the pill, her skin was breaking out, and her periods hadn't returned. And after it was like 3 months of seed cycling, skin cleared up, period returned, was quite regular, and yeah, like it was a non-issue. And so I was like, "Ooh, that was cool." And then from there I started using it with clients. But yeah, so that's where the bake mixes come from. And it's just I never want anyone to say I stopped seed cycling because it got boring. Like, so you'll notice on our social media, on our website, we're always trying to make seed cycling healthy and fun and interesting.
Oh, I love that so much. This conversation has just been incredible, Mel. Like, we've covered so much about women's health and hormones and seed cycling and, the power of, women's intuition and the moon and so many things. I've loved it. Tell me, where can everyone find you?
Yes, so the website is theseedcycle.com.au, and Instagram is _seed_cycle, and we also have a 1300 number which is on the website, and I answer that. So you can call me anytime. I love to chat to people. Even after hearing about it and reading about it, sometimes it can be they can still feel a bit confused about how do I start, what seeds do I take. So send me a message, give me a call, send me an email, and I can talk through the products with you and how to get started.
Beautiful. Love that. I will add all your links and everything to the show notes so people can find you easily. And yeah, thank you so much for today, Mel. It's been beautiful.
Thank you. It's been so fun.
Thanks for joining us on the Empowered Flow podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, I'd love you to share it with a friend and take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. Your support means the world and fuels our mission to empower women everywhere. You can also reach out to me on Instagram at Tris Alexandra Nutrition. Sending big love. I'll catch you in the next episode.